Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make raspberry shortbread bars, and this is what they look like. This bar has 2 layers of a buttery, crisp shortbread sandwiched together with this delicious tart and tangy raspberry jam. So to start, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, and then you will need a 9-inch square baking pan, that's 23 centimeters, and you can either butter your pan or you could spray it with one of those nonstick sprays. I'm going to butter my pan. So what I did is I just melted a little bit of butter, and then I'm using a pastry brush to brush both the bottom and the sides of our pan. We'll make it even more buttery than it already is. Make sure you get in the corners. Okay, looks good. So for our shortbread batter, if you have an electric stand mixer, use your paddle attachment. You could use a hand mixer, or really with a shortbread batter, you're just mixing everything together. We're not beating a lot of air into our batter, so you could just, a large bowl with a wooden spoon. And the first thing you will need is 1 cup, which is 225 grams of butter. Have your butter at room temperature. I'm using unsalted. I prefer the flavor of it, and also I like to control the salt in my recipes. But if you have a favorite salted butter that you want to use, by all means use that. So what I'm going to do now is just beat this on medium speed just to get it all creamy and smooth. Okay, and as always when you're making any kind of batter, scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl periodically just to make sure everything gets mixed together. So next, we are making a brown sugar shortbread, so you will need 1/3 cup, 75 grams of light brown sugar. Now, could you use granulated white sugar? Yes, you could. To make it a regular shortbread, same amount, 1/3 cup. And then I'm adding, for flavoring, 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. And then I'm just going to beat this on medium speed just to get everything mixed together. I don't really want to beat a lot of air into this batter. Okay, it's all mixed together. Lots of butter in these. Okay, so now in a separate bowl, I have 2 cups, which is 260 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. To that, I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. I like to use a kosher salt. I prefer, it is milder flavor than, say, the table salt, but either one. And if you use salted butter, then I would just leave out that salt. And then we just kind of want to mix that salt in. And I'm just going to add this, and I'm going to beat it in. I don't want a solid ball of dough. I just want it to start to clump together. I'm going to start on low speed. You don't want the flour coming up in your face, and then put it up maybe medium speed. Okay, so now as you can see, it's not a solid ball of dough. It's just starting to clump together. So that's it. Stop mixing. So as you can see, you could easily do this by hand. It's a great thing about a shortbread batter. So now we are using this batter for both the bottom and the top layer. So for the bottom layer, we will need 2/3 of this batter. Now, if you have a scale, as you know, big advocate of a scale, weighing your ingredients, weighing things, makes things so much easier. So if you are weighing, you will need to take out 370 grams. If you don't have a scale, then what I would do is just put this on your counter, kind of get it into a ball, and then eyeball about 2/3. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, unless you have a scale, but you know, I think scales just make things so much easier. So 370, all right. And then just kind of put your batter all over. I don't, you know, don't dump it into the center because then it's kind of hard, a little longer for you to even it out. Just kind of move it around like this. And we are going to bake the bottom layer. And the reason we do that so that it gets nice and crisp, and it will stay that way even when we put the jam on, like when you're storing your shortbread bars. So I'm just using my fingers here. You could use the back of a spoon to even it out. If you have one of these scrapers, it's you can use that to kind of even it out. Get even, you know, clean up your edges. Yeah, it feels pretty even. So now take a fork, the tines of a fork, and then just prick, lightly prick. Don't go all the way through. And that will help prevent the shortbread from puffing up as it bakes. And then for this layer, everyone's oven is a little different. I would say between 16 and 18 minutes. I would rotate your baking pan halfway through baking. That helps for it to brown evenly. And what you're looking for is the top surface to get very lightly browned. So somewhere between 16, 18 minutes. Okay, so our shortbread is done. Leave your oven on. So there we have it. You can see it's just a very light golden brown. And now we are going to put our jam on top of our shortbread. So you will need 1 cup, which is 300 grams. Now you could use a good quality, your favorite raspberry jam that you buy at the store, or you can go to the joyofbaking.com website, and I do have a recipe as well as a video showing you how to make a really quick and easy homemade refrigerator raspberry jam. So, and if you make your own, I would, the good thing about the homemade, it does store very well in the fridge for a couple of weeks, so you can make it ahead of time, not on the same day you're doing your shortbread. So, just kind of drizzle it over here. Sometimes what I like to do too is you could maybe mix a little apricot jam or preserves in with the raspberry. That's really good. And you know, you can use this recipe and experiment. Use different types of jams and preserves, whatever you like, different times of the year. So what you want to do is just take back the spoon or offset spatula and spread it out. Leave a little bit of a border around the outside. Okay. And then you have the rest of your shortbread batter. And what we're going to do is kind of clump it. Now we're not going to do a solid layer. We're just going to put clumps of it. And that way when it bakes after, you can kind of see the raspberry jam kind of poking through the shortbread, which I like. Makes it a little more appealing to look at. And then plus people can see that you've got some jam underneath there. Okay, looks pretty good. So now we're going to put it back in the oven. This time for about 25-30 minutes, or until the shortbread is nice golden brown. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Just kind of gently press, careful, the pan's hot, the shortbread into the jam. so it will adhere very nicely. So, okay, 25 to 30 minutes. Again, rotate your pan about halfway through baking. So our raspberry shortbread bars are now done. Put your pan on a wire rack, and as you can see, the shortbread is a gorgeous golden brown and the jam's all bubbly. Smells like raspberries in the kitchen. I love it. So we do need to cut our shortbread into individual servings while it's still quite warm. Because if you let it cool down completely and then try to cut it, what happens? The shortbread will be quite crumbly. I mean, that's good to eat, but it's hard to cut. So what I'm going to do is let this sit about 5 minutes, and then when we come back, we will cut it into servings. So now, shortbread's still quite warm, so take a sharp knife and, really cut these any size you would like. I like to just clean my knife after every cut. And then I'm going to let these cool down completely because they're still really hot. And when we come back, we will try one. So let's try one. If I can get it out. Oh, there we have it. Okay, I'm just going to cut a little piece off here. Still a little warm. Like it that way. I love shortbread. It's so buttery. It's wonderfully crisp and crumbly. And you know what? It's quite rich, but when you contrast that with the tart and tanginess of a raspberry jam, or really any jam, that kind of yin and yang thing, it really goes so well together. And try making your own homemade raspberry jam. It really is good. So try this one. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com.